Everything else, the language on the referendum was purposefully unintelligible and deceptive. As everyone knows, I am extraordinarily brilliant, an extraordinarily brilliant person. And even if I had no idea what the hell they were talking about in the referendum, and neither do they. Let's see if the courts will fix this travesty of, quote, justice. President Donald J. Trump. Joining us, co-host of The Weekend and MS Now Washington reporter Jackie Alemany, host of the Bulwark podcast, and MS Now political analyst Tim Miller, and MS Now senior legal reporter Lisa Rubin. I guess first, Jackie, to you, what happened in Virginia last night? What was on the ballot? And walk us through the results.
Yeah, Katie. Well, I actually think it might be most helpful to start out with something that Erick Erickson posted on Truth Social, on X, formerly known as Twitter. Hard to keep all these platforms straight, but I think he sort of laid it out all very well, and the way that it is now backfiring for Republicans and obviously frustrating the president. He said, just so you get the truth and not the partisan spin here, Republicans came up with the idea of the mid-decade redistricting fight, started it in Texas. Then in Virginia, the RNC spent $0 to fight what ultimately passed yesterday. Prior to Virginia, this fight that Republicans did start, the outcome was essentially a wash. But now Democrats are likely to have a 2 to 4 advantage when it comes to two districts. And for Donald Trump, everything is on the line here when it does come to these November midterms. The potential for political investigations and essentially a hard stop to any sort of legislative goals that he might have in the next 2 years of his administration. Florida is going to be the next battleground that we are seeing, and that is next week. Ron DeSantis, the governor, is going to call a special legislative session, and it could add up to 3 to 4 seats if it does make it through the GOP-controlled state legislature. Of course, that's always a gamble. Ron DeSantis is also nearing lame duck status, and the last two things that he brought up to his state legislature were actually rejected by lawmakers during the last few weeks of their March regular session. So it's still a little bit TBD. But the frustration that you're really hearing with Republicans this morning is about the lack of spending. The redistricting initiative was the most expensive ballot initiative that Virginia has seen. And Republicans only lost by 90,000 points and were outspent by a lot. Democrats almost $60 million and Republicans spending only $25 million. Obviously, a huge partisan spending gap. Republicans, if they do go through with this in Florida, it could add 3 to 5 seats, again, making things out to ultimately what looks like a wash for Republicans and a lot of money spent all around.
All right. So the instinct here, when you read a Truth Social like this, and he says, as everyone knows, I'm an extraordinarily brilliant person, it's kind of to poke fun at it because it's ridiculous for somebody to say that. Yeah. But at the same time, this is very, Tim, he's playing with fire again here. I mean, it's not unexpected, but it is just another window into the way that he can wreak havoc on our electoral system and spark potentially violence. So as you saw this today, I mean, what's your expectation? I hate even asking this question. Is anybody going to push back against this? No. The answer is no.
Well, the Democrats push back against it, and that's why he's having a tantrum right now. And so,
not the Democrats, you know what I mean.
Well, yeah, sure. No, I know what you mean. But I think that's pretty noteworthy, though. I think the Democrats rightly have gotten criticized a lot during Trump 2.0 for not demonstrating backbone and standing up to him. And they did so in this redistricting fight. And that's based on what Jackie just said there, why this is going to end up as either a wash or something as a net positive for Democrats. And I guess it shows that, it's important not just to fold to Donald Trump and spend a lot of time rending garments and having committee meetings about what to do and to actually punch back. And you can see the result last night in Virginia. So kudos to Abigail Spanberger and Luis Lucas for that. As far as the threat, Katie, you're right. I mean, I think that you can make fun of it and talk about how serious it is. He's being a sore loser. And I think it's important to point and laugh at sore losers because they don't respond well to that. But we saw what happened on January 6th. We saw the seriousness of this. And he continues to advance things where people who are consuming information via conservative media or via Donald Trump's social media, they don't seem to understand how vote counting even works, right? Like this whole notion in his post that, oh, I was winning all day. It's like, and then at the end they came back to win. It's like counting votes is not like Mario Kart, where you were behind for 8 laps and then you came up and passed in the last lap. It's like everybody vote get counted. That there was no votes counted during the day. The polls closed at 7. Various different counties report. People tally the votes as they come in. It makes sense that in the densest parts of the state and the country, it takes longer to count because there are more people there. And in the densest part of the country is where Donald Trump is the least popular, in urban and suburban areas. So what happened is very straightforward. It's not complex. It's not a conspiracy. But he has laid the groundwork for, creating anger among his own base if things don't go their way. And I think that the House of Representatives is probably out of reach for Republicans now, but I think you're going to see this playbook in the Senate, which is where the real fight is going to end up being. And a lot of the big Senate battlegrounds are in red states where I think we'll see, but a lot of these Republican politicians, to your point at the beginning of this, are not going to speak out against it. And so we'll see what happens in the Iowa, Ohio, Texas, those type of states where the Senate is going to be in the balance.
I want to play a little bit from Speaker Johnson. This is before this Donald Trump Truth Social post, but here he is reacting to the news in Virginia.
We are confident and calling upon the Virginia Supreme Court to do the obvious and right result, and that is to strike this thing down. Why? Because it was demonstrated again last night. This is a divided state. It's almost 50-50. So a 10-to-1 map is not justified in that state.
The Supreme Court in Virginia, are they likely to take this up? Wouldn't it have to happen before the vote? And when you propose it and you put the initiative on the ballot, it's happened before. It happened before in California.
Yes.
It happened before this went to the vote in Texas.
There are all sorts of problems that Donald Trump is purportedly identifying in this X post or Truth Social post, Katie, that weren't dealt with prior to this referendum. One has to do with who was eligible to vote and his complaint about the mail-in voting dumping. But the second is about his complaint about deceptive and unintelligible language. That's parroting a complaint that was made today by America's First Legal. That's the organization that Stephen Miller was affiliated with before he went into the White House. And you're right to say these were the sorts of complaints that should have been aired in the legal sphere before the election ever took place. But if I can say something else about what's going on here, Donald Trump has sort of two spheres of grievance, and we shouldn't ignore one at the expense of the other. One is about the playing field, right? And that's what the redistricting battles are about. Which districts are sort of drawn in which ways. But the other one is about who even gets to vote in the first place. And the efforts to restrict mail-in balloting, the efforts by DOJ to collect voting lists from states, those are intrinsically about reducing the population of people who are going to vote in these upcoming elections in ways that Donald Trump thinks are going to be deleterious to him and his agenda as the leader of his party.
Okay, so, Tim, what do the Democrats do with this attack on our election system, once again, from the president?
Well, I was encouraged what we saw from Hakeem Jeffries last night, pushing back about this, thinking about how Florida is going to possibly redistrict and talking about how they should go ahead and try, but the Democrats right now are on offense and are going to go and take out vulnerable Republican incumbents because they're going along with Trump's crazy. And I think that, that there are legal efforts, Mark Elias and others, who are working on fighting this to the courts. I think that should continue. Friends of Protect Democracy are doing this. But from a political side, the best thing the Democrats can do is, A, what they've already done with these redistricting fights in Virginia and California, and then moving forward, making sure that Republicans actually suffer politically from this time. And I think that there are a lot of signs that they could, in big parts because of the way that, inflation is ticking up. And I think that voters should be and will be frustrated that Donald Trump cares more about trying to cheat in the elections, about his new ballroom, and about his little endeavor excursion into Iran than he cares about their needs and interests. And I think that is a message that Democrats can bring to voters in the midterms, and I think have a much better result this time than the last time around.